What is up, guys? I'm the Static Blayer, and today on a bit of a different episode, we're going to be doing some cooking. I'm going to be making some cheesecake today. I'm going to walk you all through it, and I'll be leaving the recipe down below. So let's get right to it in making the crust. So the first step for the crust would be measuring about 1 3/4 cups of graham cracker crumbs, which is about like 14 to 16 graham crackers, depending on the size of the graham cracker. If you crush them all up. 1/2. Now that the graham cracker crumbs have been measured out, we're going to be adding 2 tablespoons of just granulated sugar. And lastly, butter, about 4 and a little bit, like 4 1/3 tablespoons around is what I use. And you have to melt it, so we're going to pop this in the microwave real quick. Butter. So mix the sugar in with the graham crackers, get that all incorporated. Then once that's done, we're going to be adding in the butter. Now the thing about the butter is you can use salted or unsalted butter. Both work, but if you're going to use unsalted butter, you're going to want to add a small pinch of salt just to get it that small bit of flavor. Alright, we want the color of this to be darker brown than before, but it should not be like totally sticky. Once all the butter is incorporated into the graham crackers, we're going to be wanting to use a spring-form pan, which is one that you pull the latch on the side and the bottom falls out. So basically what we do is we pour it all in here. We flatten it out along it. And using our hand, we press it down to pack it tightly. We want it to be a nice crust. We don't want to have too many empty pockets with no crust, or we don't want it to be uneven either. So it has to be nice and uniform all around. Once that is all packed to the bottom, it goes into the oven for 10 minutes at 350. Alright, while the crust is in the oven, we're going to start on the filling. So the first and most important ingredient is the cream cheese. You're going to want to use 4 of the Philadelphia cream cheeses, the little square packages that come in this tin foily stuff. But with that, you're going to put it in a bowl and just mash it up until it's nice and smooth. You can also use an electric mixer. So once the cream cheese is soft enough while using a paddle, I switch to a hand mixer. I don't do it from the start just because I feel like it would break it, because I mean it's a smaller mixer than a table mixer, and then I just whip it until you can easily pass a spoon through it. It's nice and smooth. So once we finished beating our cream cheese, we then add the sugar, 1 1/3 cups of granulated sugar, and once we've added that in, we beat it for another 4 to 10 minutes. Well, now that I have the hand mixer, it'll just be 4 minutes. So once the sugar's added, it should be a nice smooth consistency, and you should be able to run a spoon through it still. And we are next going to add the salt, vanilla, eggs, and sour cream. We're going to start with just a little pinch of salt, and we're going to mix that in. Next we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And we're going to mix that in. We're then going to add eggs in one at a time. So we're going to crack one, mix it all in until it's totally incorporated, then do the next, and at the end we're going to mix it all together for about a minute just to make sure they're totally incorporated. Okay, so I've added all 4 of my eggs in, and at this point your batter your filling should be around the thickness of cake batter. So it'll be very easy to mix, very easy to pour, and we're just gonna mix it in thoroughly for another 30 seconds to make sure there's no more egg that hasn't been incorporated. Finally, we'll be adding 2/3 of a cup of sour cream. We're going to mix that up. Finally, once the sour cream has been added, we're going to add 2/3 of a cup of heavy cream into our filling. So the recipe that I use is kind of a fusion of around 3 other recipes. So the way that you cook the cheesecake is in a little pan of water. You put boiling water in it with this, and it cooks for about an hour and a half in that. So we just need to waterproof this container, otherwise the water will leak in and ruin the crust. So that's just what I'm doing with the tin foil. I'll use around 4 or 5 pieces. It depends on how big your tin foil is. If it goes around the whole thing, that's good, but switching direction each time. And yeah, that should waterproof it well enough. With our filling and crust in here, we're going to take this pan and place it into our holding pan, I guess you could call it. This is where the water is also going to go. And we are going to bake this for an hour and a half at 325. Here it is how it looks before it's been cooked. You see the water on the sides. The pan is waterproofed and the cake is in there. The cheesecake is in there. And we will see you in an hour and a half. Alright, it is out of the oven, and now we're just going to put it in the fridge overnight, and we'll come back to it tomorrow morning. So it's been overnight, and I took the pan off it and forgot to film, so this is what it looks like. It looks perfect, as you can see. But before you take the pan off, you want to like run a knife around the edges just to make sure it's not sticking to the sides. And you want to take it off really carefully and just flip that latch and pull it up, and it's perfect. And so now we're going to get to the topping and the raspberry drizzle, and it's going to be delicious. Alrighty, so now we have to make our sour cream topping, not the cake. The cake is made. Alright, so now we're going to start with our 1 cup of sour cream. Next we do 1/2 of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. There. And lastly, we're going to be doing around a 1/6 of a cup to a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. And we just stir that all together. Alright, now that we have our sour cream topping ready, we're just going to spread it nice and evenly along the top of the cake with a butter knife or whatever spreading utensil you have. Alright, so I finished spreading the sour cream topping on it, and as you can see it's nice and even all around, nice and smooth. And now we can get started on the raspberry second topping, I guess you can call it. For the raspberry sauce, we're going to put around 3 cups of fresh raspberries, a 1/2 cup of water, and a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Now we just mix that all together until it's one uniform sauce. Alright, as you can see, it's a nice uniform thing now. It's very loose, and as we add heat to it, we're going to add a bit of heat, and once it gets thicker, that's when you take it off the heat, let it cool, and drizzle it over your cheesecake. One note about this sauce is you want to keep mixing it, otherwise the bottom of the pan will get burnt, and you're going to have a lot of burnt sauce. So just when you're making it, just keep mixing it until it's thick enough, and I'll show you what I think is the perfect thickness. So right now my sauce is pretty much done. I removed it from the heat, and as you can see, it's a bit of a darker shade of red. It's like almost browny red, which is the perfect shade that we want, and it's definitely a bit thicker. This is what I think is the perfect consistency. Depending on how you like, you can either go thicker, you can go a bit thinner if you want. And it'll take about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how high you go. I like to go in a medium heat. Alright, now for the inaugural piece. Sprinkle some of the sauce on top. And there we have it. Perfect raspberry cheesecake. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you are new. And I will see you in the next cooking video. Bye-bye. How is the cheesecake?
It's pretty good, actually. I'm impressed. I usually don't like cheesecake, and it's pretty good.
There we have it. And he's a tough critic.